Well, I just, like you can tell, I'm kind of passionate about this thing of writing it down. I'd like to see it become sort of a rite of passage when you become a grandparent, that people start writing their life story down.
They really should.
And now here I am, a great grandparent, just getting it done. So I'm a little late to the class as usual, but the point is, better late than never, and better when you're still got your memory than when you don't, and that's forever an issue. So anyway, so today I wanted to cover a book that is written by a fellow by the name of Mark Friedman, entitled How to Live Forever. In fact, I made that the subtitle of the class from now on, Telling Your Life Story, or How to Live Forever in Print.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so, the old saying, if it isn't in writing, it doesn't exist.
Right.
Lawyers use that all the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's also true of our life story, that if we don't put it down in writing, now we have recorded media, MP3s, videos, MP4s, there's all kinds of ways to put it in print, but there's nothing like being able to pass on something tangible. So I'm planning to write a special note at the front of, I printed up 20 copies of mine. I'm going to write a special note to each child, grandchild, great-grandchild, so it's their own copy, and give it to them for Christmas. So I'm way ahead of schedule for Christmas.
Oh, yeah.
So I got plenty of time to think about what I want to write in there, along with what I already wrote about them in the different memoirs. But so how do we live forever? The subtitle of his book is The Enduring Power of Connecting the Generations. Mm-hmm. And so he founded Encore.org, which is an organization that's been working for 5 years. Recently they joined forces with AARP, and they're helping people to do something in this season of life that's opened up between 65 and 95 or whatever, where there didn't used to be a whole lot of time. Now there's a lot more time. And so what do you do in this new season of life? And so his whole vision is to create an encore career, something that you've always wanted to do: volunteering, doing artwork, writing, whatever, you name it. Maybe you wanted to be a rocket scientist and you couldn't. Now you got time. You could still, because a lot of the greatest inventions he points out in the book are coming from people ages 70 and up.
Really?
Really.
Yeah.
And he lists off a whole bunch of the famous people. I don't think I put him in this class, but I recommend getting the book. But I'm just going to cover some of the high points of the book. So there's this transformational movement that's going on worldwide that's gaining traction, and people reimagining their second half of life. Rather than making the priority just playing golf and traveling the world and sitting back and clipping coupons and, going to ball games and different things, actually getting back engaged in, staying engaged with the culture and connecting with the younger generation. He points out in this book that if you want to live forever, the easiest way to do that is to mentor somebody and let your wisdom pass on to somebody else. He offers a preview of this brave new future that we face living longer, where the gifts and talents of an aging population, he says, fit hand in glove to meet the needs of the younger generation seeking encouragement of true mentors. And now, some young people don't seem like they really have time or interest, but if you drill down deeper, you find that a lot of children today, their grandparents are maybe separated geographically. And so there's opportunities in a local community to reach out and fill that gap.
Yeah.
He wrote a bestseller back in 2012 entitled The Big Shift. And what he covers in there is he gives people a guided tour of this third stage of life thinking, that is this new stage that's opened up, marking the end of the retirement era popularized over the last 90 years. Mm-hmm. starting from the 30s through about 2000, 2010 or so. The retirement era basically meant, kicking back, and well, the whole word retirement we've covered means retreating, not advancing. So he says, though, that the latest inspired sequel, Friedman asserts something rather obvious but overlooked. The young and the old are built for each other. The old are driven by deep desire to be needed by and to nurture the next generation. The young have a need to be nurtured.
Mhm.
So the two fit together perfectly. Marx followed his passion to engage older people's untapped talents and alleviate them. He's founded a number of organizations, Encore.org, Civic Ventures, Experience Corp, and now Gen2Gen.org. And in fact, they changed the website title from Encore.org to Cogenerate.org. So that's how committed they are to, cogeneration. So he says Friedman, Mark encourages boomers and older folks too. The book's targeted at baby boomers like me, but older generation it applies to. Mark encourages boomers and elders to resist the mandate to go off in pursuit of their second childhood. How many people do that? Instead of trying to be young, we should focus on being there for those who are actually young. I like the way he puts that. I see so many people, I'm single, so I'm like on a dating site. So you see a lot of people in their 60s, even 70s, still grasping at their youth.
Yeah.
Still wishing that they were 20, 30, 40 years younger. Why not just give up on that lost cause and start investing in the real youth and be comfortable in your own skin rather than feeling like you have to live at the plastic surgeons.
Right.
Anyway, cheating death amounts to cheating life, he says. While we've added years to life, it is time to add life to those years.
Yeah.
That was a quote from John F.
I
Kennedy
like that. Is that
in
right?
1963 speech. While we've added years to life, it's time to add life to those years.
Yeah.
He was very, big supporter of the Peace Corps, which was again,
Yes.
the adults giving back to society.
Yeah.
Get this: 1 out of 3 babies born today, that would be like my great grandson, will live to 100. 1 in 3,
That's pretty bad.
according to a Prudential Insurance billboard.
Wow.
Let's get ready for a longer retirement, says the tagline. Well, yeah, a lot of people are fearful that their money's going to run out before their life does. The trend toward expanding human longevity is also heavily promoted by the tech titans, the forever young entrepreneurs who envision artificial intelligence surpassing human intelligence, as well as striving to erase death completely. I mean, a lot of these guys are working toward downloading their brain to a computer and still having consciousness beyond their death. I mean, will I say it's impossible? It seems like nothing's impossible, but is that really the purpose of life, to live like an eternal fountain of youth?
Connect that to a hologram, huh?
Yeah, exactly. As Mark puts it, Silicon Valley's death-cheating efforts amount to a colossal case of misplaced attention and resources. Cheating death amounts to cheating life.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it's basically just grasping at that staying young rather than accepting the aging process, embracing it,
Yeah.
and graciously sharing
Pass
the
on.
wisdom from it with others rather than just keep trying to go on. I'm not against trying to live as long as you can. I know there's a book out, I'm going to live to 120. Well, bless your heart. Maybe you will, maybe you won't. All we have really is today, though, and let's really make the most of that. So in contrast, Friedman is in agreement with Steve Jobs, who told the Stanford graduating class of 2005, quote, "Death is the single best invention of life. Clearing out the old, making way for the new. Remembering that I will be dead soon is the most important tool I've ever encountered to help me make the big choices in life," said Jobs to the graduating class at Stanford.
Wow.
So
This
he-
was how long before
Well,
he
that-
died? Did he know it was terminal at the
I'm
time
not
he
sure
did
what
the
year he
farm?
died, but he said this in 2005.
Yeah.
And it's,
Gee.
death ends a life, but not a relationship, says Friedman. I am what survives me. Or as I put it in the song, what's remembered lives on.
Mm.
And that's really the key, I think. But death ends a life, but not a relationship. I am what survives me, said Erik Erikson, the great pioneer of adult development. He was a psychologist. He coined the term generativity.
Generativity, yeah.
As a concern for establishing and guiding the next generation. So that's where Friedman lives, that's what he's pushing. The power of adult living. Faith, hope, and love, but the greatest of these is love, says 1 Corinthians 13:13. What do resilient children that grow up to be caring, competent, and confident adults have in common? According to psychologist Emmy Werner, the presence of a caring adult beyond the immediate family. A mentor, an aunt, a coach, a teacher, a neighbor who took interest in the younger person and took them under his or her wing. So, because as we know, a lot of times children shun their parents at a certain age.
Yeah.
And if they can find another adult that can help them and be present for them, a mentor, that is what makes the difference in them being caring, competent, and confident adults. So that's a great mandate for us. Involvement in a community group, church, or the Y also proved to be an important buffer from the corrosive effect of negative circumstances. Cornell professor and child psychologist Uri Bronfenbrenner famously concluded, every child needs at least one adult who is irrationally crazy about him or her. So, thus we have programs like Big Brothers, Big Sisters. Now there's foster grandparents that you can sign up for that have shown a positive effect on loving adults, investing time developing relationships with children. So the power of a loving adult is much more so than we might assume. And even if we don't have children in our proximity or that are related to us, there are some ways that we can stretch ourselves and pour ourselves into some kids and know that it's going to have a real beneficial effect according to the best psychologists, child psychologists. So what he thinks it's time for is to rebrand retirement entirely. He says, too old to work, too young to die. That was Walter Reuther, who was the UAW president. I think a lot of us feel like that. We're maybe too old to work full time and doing, if we did manual work or whatever, or maybe we're just tired of the kind of work we did all our life, but we're too young to die, so what do? The dream of graying as playing, according to Friedman, the rise of age-segregated, seniors-only, sunshine cities would come to embody the new norm for the golden years, writes Friedman. Thus we had, Sun City, and the whole movement that began in the 50s and the 60s.
Yeah.
He calls this age apartheid. It had a humble beginning in Youngstown, Arizona. I know it well, it's right next to Sun City. They called it Youngstown. Again, it was to try to make you feel young. The idea was that if you're surrounded only by other older folks, then you're kind of in your own playground. But soon it expanded nationwide. Now we have Sun City, Florida, and You know, we have
I
retirement.
worked there 15 years up in Sun City.
In Arizona or?
Here.
Here, okay.
Yeah.
But soon expanded the goal to make the elderly people not feel old. So that was the goal. I mean, Exhibit A today would be, what's that town near Orlando, the fastest growing?
Celebration.
Is it Celebration? I'm thinking of,
That's where Pat Schroeder lived, and she just passed away.
okay.
The senator from.
But there's a name for that whole area there. It's like the fastest growing town. They did a documentary on it where they have like 3,000 senior groups.
You're not talking about the one just west of. You're not talking about the villages.
Yeah, the villages.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So the villages would be Exhibit A of what he says is the shape of the things past, not where we're going. Although it is still the fastest growing city, I hear, in the country. But
He says that's the shape of things to come.
no, of the old.
Oh, the old one, yeah.
The old
yeah,
way.
Right.
So he says the dream of graying is playing, age segregated, seniors only, sunshine communities has come to embody the new norm for golden years. This age apartheid had a humble beginning, but soon expanded. The rise of mass advertising campaigns portraying this period of life as a time of freedom and leisure dovetailed in '60 with the launch of Del Webb's Sun City retirement.
Yeah.
Del Webb was credited with first coining the phrase "the golden years." Well, how about that? While heavily promoting the illusion of a second childhood using the philosophy that, quote, if everyone is young, then no one is young. If everyone is old, no one is old. 60 years later, this is where we are now, demographers find that age segregation in America is often as deep-seated as racial segregation.
Oh, wow.
About 1/3 of the people over 55 reside in communities of the same age peers. According to Friedman, without proximity, friendships don't easily form across the generations. This contributes to loneliness, described as the single most significant public health issue of our time. Loneliness. So, while these 55 and up communities are popular, they're not actually promoting, like he says, friendships across generations. They're promoting sticking with people just your own age.
Exactly.
And, you know, so there's a certain part of us that likes that, but he's saying it's healthier back in the time when we had 2, 3, 4 generations living under a roof.
Yeah.
Because, you know, the older folks' wisdom was in everyday circulation in the family, not just occasionally on holidays or trips and vacations and things like that. Reflecting on America's history, Freeman reminds readers that when the Puritans arrived in Massachusetts, they lived short lives, revered age, and considered white hair as a crown of gold. Yeah, and they still do that in many cultures, in Japan and other Eastern cultures.
That's right.
Historians termed the Puritan colonies as a gerontocracy. That's an interesting word. But by the 19th century, age as status began to unravel, despite multiple generations still living under the same roof. All that changed in the 20th century, writes Friedman. American society began to recognize childhood as a distinct life stage. I didn't know this. In other words, childhood and teenagehood became their own entity. They weren't previous to that. Later life went from being considered divinely blessed to being deemed a medical condition.
Oh.
Institutions like nursing homes sprang up to warehouse these human artifacts on the periphery of society. An enactment of Social Security in 1934 hardened the definition of old age. So where do we come up with this? At age 65, you're now a senior citizen. Many people at 65, you know, psychologists say envision ourselves about 20% younger than we are. So that means since I just turned 70, I envision myself as 56. Well, I still got like another decade to be considered a senior citizen in the new physiology of aging and medical breakthroughs, but we still are stuck with this definition of anything over 65 being retirement. Mark somberly concludes, quote, "In a single century, we've gone from one of the most age-integrated nations on earth to its mirror opposite, and to that end, or in the end, culture and institutions lined up to radically reroute the river of life." And he considers it crying shame. And thus, he's working hard to reverse it. I'm going to go ahead and cover what's in class 12 right now. I'm, going to go on with this because we'll just cover the whole rest of the book, which would have been next week's since we have time. So, quote, "The seasoned grandparents and grandchildren get along." Wait, type is small. "The reason grandparents and grandchildren get along so well is they have a common enemy. Parents."
Oh, yeah.
That's Sam Levinson, comedian. Isn't it true, though?
Oh, yeah.
Isn't it true? In 1997, together with his beloved mentor, 85-year-old John W. Gardner, former secretary of HEW, who was responsible for implementing Medicare, Older American Acts, and the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, Friedman launched a new program called Experience Corps, a domestic Peace Corps-like program engaging older people to help the next generation thrive. So that's worth taking note of and maybe going to their website and seeing what opportunities. Mr. Gardner saw purpose in life as the most important and neglected challenge facing older people. Quote, "Never before have been so firmly shouldered out of every significant role of life in the family, in the world of work, and in the community," said Gardner. So he sees that seniors have been segregated and pushed, kind of ghettoized in a way. Quote, "John believed Experience Course could unleash the time, talent, and know-how of older Americans to revitalize civil society. This, in one sense, is our Operation Give Back. The primary goal was to mobilize older people to help low-income children by asking volunteers to pledge a minimum of 15 hours a week to forge strong relationships. After the first testing in 5 cities, they were encouraged to find students scored 60% better on essential literacy skills, and behavioral problems went down 30 to 50% simply by interacting more with seniors. The mysterious love between generations had profoundly practical effects. Experience Corps members showed new activation in areas of the brain involved with complex problem solving. So again, this being involved with this also helps not only the kids, but the seniors in their brain involving complex problem solving, which keeps your brain from getting lazy and dementia. Today, Experience Corp engages 2,300 old adults to help 31,000 low-income children in more than 20 cities. In 2011, AARP adopted the program, invested in it, and put it on a better position to grow, writes Friedman. So that's definitely worth looking into. So from independence to interdependence. In America, we have a Declaration of Independence, but our history, our advancements, our global strength all point to an American Declaration of Interdependence, said Cory Booker, a politician. He ran for president.
I see him on TV quite often.
Yeah, and so you could say that moving from childhood, we go through dependence, then we come into our own and we become independent.
Yeah.
And a lot of people revel in that and stay independent their whole life and brag about it. But he's saying the next stage is interdependence. That's another step of maturity that seniors should be the ones sort of plowing that ground.
Yeah.
In pondering how best to break the legacy of age separation and segregation, Friedman spent several years traveling the nation and the globe in search of innovative ideas about how local communities, educational institutions, and workplaces were planting seeds of change. He discovered 3 basic types of what he calls dreamers and schemers. Friedman's working to bring generations together for mutual benefit. One were inventors who were dreaming up radical new ideas. So some people live in the idea sphere and they can come up and invent ideas. Secondly, integrators, those who are bringing existing institutions like senior centers and preschools together. There's kind of a movement going on to locate preschools near senior centers
Oh, yeah.
to allow.
That was a great thing that my wife was harping on her whole career.
She worked in a preschool or?
Well, she was an early childhood education.
Oh, okay, early childhood.
And then she became eventually a retirement home social director. But her whole thing all the time was to try to have schools, elementary schools at least, connected with large
Right.
retirement communities.
Right.
And she pushed that all the time, and sometimes it worked, and most of the time it didn't, but. that was
Well,
her big
it
thing.
takes a concerted effort and some real work. It doesn't just happen
No.
by accident.
No, it doesn't.
So you've got inventors, integrators, bringing senior centers, preschools together, and infiltrators. Infiltrators are typically injecting old or younger people into settings where they might not have been found previously.
Mm-hmm.
And so Friedman singles out one example of the inventor, the Treehouse Foundation in East Hampton, Maine. It's a model of multi-generational living crafted to promote intergenerational connections and a small town feel. So foster parents and adoptive families get the supportive community they need, and older people live among them, enabling them to become surrogate grandparents while developing a rich network of peers along the way.
Yeah.
Mark points to encouraging trends among other major home builders that are offering deliberately mixed developments as boomers make room for millennial children or aging parents. So
Oh,
you
yeah.
see
Terrific.
now mother-in-law guest houses or wings put on,
Yeah.
you might call them that, or you might say they're also possibly for boomerang kids that come back as well. But Lennar is a builder promoting what it calls its next gen model.
Oh, yeah.
Pardee Homes launched its Gen Smart Suite to allow multiple generations to live again together. So there is a movement. It is going. It's slow, but it's kind of the shape of things to come, I think. Judson Manor, located in Cleveland, Ohio, is an example Friedman gives of integrators. Judson houses 120 seniors and 7 graduate students from the nearby Cleveland Institute of Music. So the faculty serves, or the facility serves as affordable housing for students who agree to play music to entertain the residents and participate in meals and other community events.
That's great, that's great.
Yeah, so it's like your own built-in little orchestra that's there from the School of Music. The power of proximity helped bridge the generation gap at both Judson and the Gorham House, a retirement assisted living facility in Portland, Maine, located next to the Gorham Preschool, which has competitive advantage of having a built-in army of surrogate grandparents, bastions of caring and love, waiting to do their thing. At Gorham House, the most coveted rooms are the ones nearest the children's playground.
Oh, yeah.
Why? Because we somehow thrive on hearing the pitter-patter of little feet, or the little laughter and
Oh, yeah.
playing
Yeah.
and occasional crying. Yeah, So it's not easy to change culture and institutions, says Mark, but it took a powerful wave of change to separate people by age. And I think part of it was when we followed our careers and they divided families across the country a lot more,
That's right.
with the whole age of that.
Yeah.
So it took a while for that to gain momentum. So it's going to take equal, forceful, and imaginative counter wave to bring people back together again. The further human society drifts away from nature, the less we understand interdependence, says Peter Senge, scientist. So we've been drifting, and we don't understand how interconnected. I mean, if you could see below the ground, you see tree roots are connected. I mean, there's stuff that we don't see that's going on of interdependence. As underground stream known as Strawberry Creek in Berkeley is slowly being uncovered and rediscovered, this reminds Mark of what American culture has done to the spirit of generativity over the last half century. Quote, today a mere 1% of philanthropy goes into anything related to aging or engagement across generations, writes Friedman. That's
Really?
not very good. The Eisner Foundation has emerged as a model dedicated to bringing generations together for mutual benefit. This represents a 21st century back to nature movement, he says. Only this time it's back to human nature. Human nature, not just, I mean, there's a lot. I mean, we're coming up on Earth Day. Today's the equinox.
Yeah.
There's a lot of exalting and reconnecting with the earth going on. But he says it's not just a back to earth nature, it's back to human nature, which is this desire to be together. Friedman reminds readers that a stream of connected generations has been flowing since the beginning of time. The word mentor originates from the Odyssey, as Mentor was the wise old character from Odysseus entrusts the care of his son Telemachus. He goes off to war. Friedman's heartfelt call is age to age integrate instead of remaining stuck in age segregated communities, schools, and workplaces that drive a wedge between the young and old. Quote, if we stood in front of a whiteboard and tried to design the perfect human resource for kids, it would be a group that's vast and growing, with time on its hands, inclined toward connection, in possession of abundant skills, and driven not you. Okay, and it's driven not self-centered, but to relationship by generativity. In other words, older people.
Yeah.
I mean, if you were to, like you said, just think, it just makes so much sense. His conclusion, wait a minute, okay. To promote a national change of direction, Freeman has launched generationtogeneration.org or gen2gen.org campaign to, quote, to help build society where older people standing up for younger ones become both the expectation and the norm in later life. Our rallying cry, a better future for future generations. His conclusions, how to live mortal. A human being would certainly not grow to be 70 or 80 years old if this longevity had no meaning for the species. The afternoon of life must also have a significance of its own and cannot be merely a pitiful appendage to life's morning. Carl Jung, we've covered that before. An excellent documentary film, Keeping On, 2014. I haven't seen that one. I'm
No.
have to look at that one.
2014.
It's in your notes here.
Oh, good.
Which Friedman spotlights, vividly illustrates, oh, I did see it, now that I see what it's about, vividly illustrates how the world's greatest jazz trumpet player, Clark Terry, focused his twilight years on passing his expertise in jazz tradition to the next generation. He mentored a young man. That's what the movie is. It's a documentary about that. It's very good. For over a decade, Mr. Terry coached a blind young piano prodigy, Justin Kaufman. An extraordinary friendship developed until Terry's death in 2015 at 94. This is a very inspiring film. I decided to watch myself, and it's very touching. I recommend to keep the Kleenex handy. Yeah, it was good. Quote, "Society grows great when older people plant trees under whose shade they will never sit." I guess that's an old Greek proverb, although I've also heard that it was an old Indian proverb. So
Yeah.
it's just an old proverb by whatever country cranks your tractor. Friedman concludes his clarion call to action with a challenge that we must not wait too long. Quote, "Planting, tending, bequeathing to the next generation is an essential human project, one that we no longer understood, yet let slip, or one that we've long understood, yet let slip over the past half century. The real fountain of youth is the fountain with youth. And the only true way to live forever is to live together."
It's good.
Yeah, good stuff. And then I put a PS here if you're interested in some other amazing insights on mentoring in the next generation. Read a book by my friend Parker J. Palmer, On the Brink of Everything, Grace, Gravity, and Getting Old. He's working on a new book right now. In fact, I on Facebook said, what's it going to be called? Over the Brink?
Over the Brink.
Over the Brink, or Brinkmanship.
Yeah.
There's nothing to be afraid of. What comes next? Have no fear of what comes next, or something. Anyway, he said I got him thinking on it. So, anyway, so that's what I wanted to kind of conclude the class with, is this call to end age segregation and for us all, in the 50 plus, to kind of turn and shift our focus sort of away from us and on to kids and grandkids and the next generation. And in doing that, we will benefit ourselves as well as be able to plant seeds and share the wisdom that we've gained, and hopefully do some good in our later years. Maybe more good than we've done, for a lot of our life, because we were so wound up in all the things that we were responsible to do as parents and grandparents. Now, as a great-grandparent, it seems like there's not a whole lot left for me to do, because my daughter now is becoming a grandparent, so now it's her turn to be there but I'm going to be there too, and it's just great to be alive still as a great-grandparent.
Yeah.
So anyway, any other things that we want to cover in class? Any other questions?
I don't think so. I'm getting ready to go up to Sun City Center tomorrow.
Okay.
Or I go up there almost every week
Mm-hmm.
for the ukulele group that I belong to.
Oh, you play ukulele?
Yeah.
Yeah, good.
And I play the baritone uke, because I used to play the guitar, folk guitar, for many years. I bought a Goya classic guitar back in 1956, I think it was. And I took it to Spain with me.
Wow.
I studied flamenco in Spain
Oh,
for a
you did?
while. And then when I got back to Washington DC, I was in the Navy then, I took lessons on classical guitar until they told me that I didn't spend enough time, doing it. And so I left that and went back to the folk guitar. But when I joined the uke group, the first time I joined, I tried to learn reune just on a uke, the way to play uke. And that was too hard for me, so they told me, get a baritone uke. So the top 4 strings are the same as your guitar, of course, and that's been great. So that's what I'm involved in that.
That's great. It's really
a lot of fun.
Yeah. Music is, I think, in many ways, the language of the soul. I thought I might share one more song since.
Great. I'm thinking that once I write this book, and I'm doing now,
Uh-huh.
That's when I'll start thinking about writing songs.
Cool. Well, you know, I shared my story about my, my memoir about my 7 lowest points in my life.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. Oh, you weren't there for that one.
No.
Okay. Well, one of them was a very difficult season in which I was separated from my youngest daughter for about 5 years.
Oh, yeah.
And it was out of my control. I couldn't do anything. So this song was born out of my grief, I guess you'd call it. And yet I knew somehow that we would be reunited. I just didn't know when. And it was a very helpless feeling. So this is simply called A Father's Love.
Wow.
And without Father's love, missing part of me. Without Father's love, I lack true identity. I played it for a while. Without Father's love, I often feel so lost. Without Father's love, will I forever pay the cost? Oh, can you show me Father's love? Could you show me Father's love? Can you stand beside me every day? Love me no matter what I say. When I fall, wipe my tears away. Oh, can you show me Father's love? Dear God, help me find a Father's love. There we go. To fill empty space inside of me. Thank you, dear Lord. Your love gives me identity. Heavenly Father, in your presence, love I need. Dear God, help me share a Father's love with all I need. Father's love, I now feel whole. Father's love, I can love myself. Father's love, I am truly That's almost flamingo-y there, huh?
Terrific.
Anyway, that was, it's been a long time since I played that, but that actually expressed